Hi guys, welcome to today's episode. Me and Mark, we're actually back because we haven't done an episode together for what seems like months. We spoke about a number of different topics. One of the ones that came up quite a lot was making sure your trainer knows why he's doing an exercise. So when we think about programming, when we think about prescribing exercise for clients, we need to know the intent. There are multiple exercises, there are thousands of exercises, but there are multiple exercises that you can do, and depending on the way you do them would depend on what you're trying to get out of this exercise. So when we come to looking at things like power movements, we look at speed days, we look at doing these types of plyometrics, we want to really focus on the skills of these exercises and be able to program them in the correct way when we pick them. A box jump, for example, can be used to produce power. A box jump can also be used for a conditioning tool. Depending on which way you want to use it is dependent on where you put it and how you program it. So today doesn't actually sound as technical as it might do on this intro, but we do just go into knowing how to know that you're performing the exercise the right way. As someone, if you are doing these conditioning classes or you're having online coaching, they're giving you exercises, knowing how to do them and what the intent is going to be really important for you getting the results that is desired from your coach. Hopefully you enjoy this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you can, 5-star rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. Screenshot this, put it on your stories, tag us all within it. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Real Coaching Radio, the podcast for coaches by coaches. We are here to teach you how to get the most out of your clients and yourself. This is where beauty meets the beast, brains meet brawn, and science meets, well, bro science. Welcome to Real Coaching Radio.
Performance and muscle building, is that kind of what Methods is about?
Or? Yeah, I guess so. I guess certainly the performance program, the compete program not so much. Although we do understand, and people should understand, that having a level of muscle mass will help improve your performance. And obviously there's that level of muscle mass is probably individual to the person, because and that level of muscle mass is going to have an upper limit and a threshold, because if you turn into a mass monster bodybuilder, don't expect to move your way around a field being fairly agile.
Because that's, I suppose, that's the difference as well, or the balancing act when trying to improve power, isn't it? Because if you're lighter but stronger, you should be able to move quicker as well. Yeah,
so if your power to weight ratio is in your favor, you don't weigh very much and you're pretty strong. So take Chris, for example. He's light, mega strong. And Chris is also quite fast. So we've not tested anything, but I imagine his rate of force development is also quite high, so he can produce force quickly.
Yep.
Because on any given sport, really, apart from powerlifting, really any given sport, your max strength is probably not really going to make a difference. Not really the be all and end all, because if you think about in a lot of sports, you have a very small time frame to access that strength.
Yep. Whether
that's jumping, hitting a tackle, turning, whatever it might be, there's a level of force output that's required to perform and produce that movement. So, and when you're playing sport, you have a very small window of time to access a level of strength. And if maximum strength takes longer to get to than peak power, for example, so it's more really about your power output. But there are, you could certainly argue that the higher your ceiling, so the max strength level that you have, the higher your ceiling, the more likely you are to be able to access a higher level of output quicker, if that makes sense.
And then I suppose like if you combine that with kind of what it's worth spending your time doing, is in like when you're doing performance training or trying to improve your performance, especially like talking about power at the moment, I guess chasing a 1 rep max isn't actually going to aid in that process of performance too much.
Not really. I mean, it's going to have its benefits, of course, because, you know, increasing maximum strength, it's going to have its benefits. But you need to probably spend, especially if it's something you don't do, you probably need to spend a lot more of your time doing things that are considerably faster.
Yep.
Whether that just be like pure sprinting, jumping, lighter reps but moving quicker. And again, I think if people are new to it, I'm always a bit putting like speed reps into people's training programs is not something I'd say I'd want to avoid, but I think the intention for a lot of people is wrong because they don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas if I said to you, let's do, I don't know, 7 sets of 3 on a speed trap bar deadlift.
Yeah.
Like what a lot of people would do is just go like, they would just move really quickly. And that is what they're trying to do. But there's a difference of moving really quickly and like moving really quickly with like intention and control.
Yeah.
But whereas if I said, we might bring that weight down a little bit more, and I said, we're going to do 7 sets of 3 trap bar deadlift jumps.
Yep.
There's no other way around you performing that movement other than moving quickly.
Yeah, because it almost like if you start to move, what I found with like any type of speed rep stuff is the movement can become way more sloppy.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I know, to me it seems counterintuitive to do that unless you can move at a rate of at speed where it's kind of, you can keep the right form as you go through the movement.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. Like people kind of like, let's take a squat for example, they'll unrack the bar, they'll feel that it's like significantly lighter and just almost sometimes just like go through the motions a little bit. Yeah, and like, you're a little bit sloppy in your form because you don't need to be as tight, if you like. Yeah,
and I think that's the difficulty that I found along the spectrum of, if you've got down here kind of box jumps and jump squats, and you've got up here your max strength for your like max 1 rep, max squat or whatever, I found top end really easy, and you can find kind of bottom of that really easy.
Yeah.
This middle stage where you're kind of lifting, what percentages would that be? Say like 40-50%?
I mean, well, you're going to have either end. So you're going to have speed strength and strength speed.
Okay.
So like strength speed, you're going to be like a little bit more, so 70% maybe. Speed strength, you're going to be a little bit lighter, 30 to 50 potentially.
Yeah. So even that top end of 70%.
Yeah.
Is easier to put the intention into it.
Yeah.
Because you've got the resistance.
You're fighting against more, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas down the and like it's just that middle section which the weight is really light that you've still got to try and keep the intention there.
Yeah.
That's the bit that I find I even find that really difficult to do.
Well, it's the same with box jumps, isn't it? Because, you know, we use box jumps in classes, and, you know, CrossFit use box jumps a lot, but CrossFit use box jumps as a conditioning tool.
Yep.
And I've had this discussion many times with people around when it comes to competitions, like certainly specifically CrossFit competitions, and you watch people do box jumps and it looks effortless and they're saving loads of energy and kind of, that's great for like being on the competition floor, like preserving energy and in that specific environment. But in a training environment, when you're looking to try and get more powerful, then you're almost looking to do the opposite. You know, you want to be tighter.
Yep.
You want to be like more intentional with the movement that you're doing.
Yep.
And, you know, you're trying to, you know, you're physically trying to jump as high as you can jump.
Yeah.
And then obviously land. And again, like you see, again, a lot of people they'll do box jumps. Even in a training scenario, you take the general public, a lot of people will do box jumps and land on the box in a full squat.
Yeah.
But and I think a lot of people will land on the box in a full squat because they then got to like stand up out of the squat, and actually like it probably hurts their legs a little bit more. So it comes back to what we've spoken about before in terms of certainly the general public will relate sensation to how good the training method is. They can feel that more in their legs. So to them, it's good.
Yeah.
Whereas from a power output point of view, like that's not really, you're not really demonstrating an ability to jump. You're just demonstrating an ability to tuck your knees up and get into a squat on top of the box.
So when you're looking, say you film yourself doing box jumps, for example, the kind of area you want to be looking at is around your belly button, right? How high is that part of you getting?
Yeah, because that's
So
effectively center of mass, right?
Yeah. So as you're doing this movement, can you get your almost, say you do jump up and you've got to really squat, bring your knees up high to kind of catch yourself on the top of the box. Even like a better test maybe than even making the box higher, because you just have to bring your knees up more, could just be trying to keep your legs straighter as you land.
Yeah.
So you're getting actually higher.
Yeah, because if you say like the box is this height,
Yeah.
and you get some people that drop into a full squat, then actually when they land into the squat, and like you look at the distance from the top of the box to their belly button, it's like here,
Yeah.
because they're in a deep squat.
Yeah.
Whereas if you got the top of the box here and your belly button's up here,
Yeah.
you've traveled further.
Yeah. So, and that, I think that's the thing with the kind of power side of stuff, is it's like those things are really easy to say you've moved better and you've got higher, like you've produced more power in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you then start to go, right, we're going to do speed work on a squat,
Yeah.
it's really difficult to then know, well, how do I tell that the speed work I'm doing is actually the correct intention? Because am I slowing down too quick at the top so that I'm coming up fast out of the bottom but then just slow to the top?
Yeah.
Is it, if I'm going too quick and I'm like jumping off the floor, does that mean the weight's too, do you know what I mean? Like those are some of the questions that I've had around.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like in both those scenarios, if you're you're a bit slow at the top and or you're coming off the floor, I would say like they're probably down to the same thing but the complete opposite thing. And what I mean by that is the same thing being it's just a coordination component.
Okay.
And that then turns into and shows itself as you're slowing down at the top, so you're putting the brakes on a little bit too early because you don't really know when to put the brakes on.
Yep.
So you're being a bit cautious.
Yep.
Or you're potentially like a little bit erratic coming out of it, lost control because you've lost a bit of coordination. You're like flying around coming off the floor. Yeah. So I would say like most of those things are more of a coordination. And it's, because at the end of the day, just like everything else, and we say this a lot, is like it's a skill.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons why, for me, and it depends who they are. Like if it's somebody who is like lower level, general public, wants to be a little bit better at a sport that they play. Like for me, I just use jumping and variations of jumping, sprinting uphill, jumping with weights, jumping with dumbbells, jumping with barbells, like more usually a trap bar more than an actual barbell, potentially like barbell back squat jumps, those kind of things. Simply because you have no other choice than to move quickly.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you've got all the time in the world, and you've got somebody you've got all the time in the world to be able to get somebody to being skillful, or you've got somebody who is already incredibly skillful, so like probably a very good track and field athlete is going to be good at it. But if you've got somebody who's not, and they're just like, I want to get a little bit better at tennis.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, bang for buck, let's jump.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point actually. It's like the sport and the type of person dictates how we use this.
Yeah, I think the thing that I see a lot of is because they're obviously they're not plyometrics, but you're getting a little bit closer to plyometric because you're moving faster. Which is a component of plyometric, but like I said, it's not plyometrics. But I think we talk all the time about like max strength being a skill and having the ability to handle heavy loads and having the psychological ability to unrack a heavy barbell and squat it. Like, and we talk a lot about that being a skill. And because as human beings, like we can jump, we can run, you can hop, most people can skip. You see people doing plyometric activities and you're just like, oh yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
But like true plyometrics is probably one of the hardest things to be able to be good at. Like, they just get butchered all the time, and people are like, oh yeah, but it's just jumping, isn't it? Well, it's not. It is, but it isn't.
It isn't. Yeah. So that's the thing that's the really hard bit as someone who's trying to like. I think this is what I see a lot of with general public coaches as well, is not respecting every exercise as the skill that is involved.
Yeah.
Because we always say strength is a skill. We always say exercises are skills, but people don't take into consideration how much that actually goes into the exercises that they just deem as easy, whether that is just doing a box jump or whether that is doing a bicep curl. There are coordination and skill within the movement, depending on your level of ability and your previous experience doing certain exercises. You may find some things easier than others, but that doesn't mean the skill's any less there.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of people pay it like a little bit of lip service and don't understand how much of a skill it is. Because if we relate it back to like heavy strength training, and I put 2 bars in a rack, and I said to you, right, there's a 220 kilo barbell, go and squat it. Some people might be able to do that, but a lot of people just be like, not a chance.
Yeah.
If I said, there's an empty barbell, go and do 5 squat jumps with it, they'd be like, all right.
Yes.
And most people will be able to do it. So they don't recognize it as being as much of a skill because it's just like, oh, it's light, isn't it? I can do that. That's easy.
Yeah.
But, or if I said, you know, there's a 220 kilo barbell, go and squat it, same response. Or there's a 20 meter track, go and do some bounds down it.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll be like, you know, what's a bound? You show them a video of somebody bounding on YouTube, just like, oh yeah, I can do that. It's just like an extended skip.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like, well, yeah, I can do that. It's just like, well, you can't.
Yes. So this is really good because I think learning these movements is really crucial as a coach to love the learning of exercises and love the learning of being able to move your body and understanding the intent, because you can prescribe exercises then to your clients, and if you don't know the intent needed from the exercise, you could either be prescribing it wrong or they're going to take it as, well, I can just bound down a track. And it's, well, this is what we're trying to get from this movement. And I think that's one of the hardest bits around this kind of, I guess, industry as a whole, is where do you find that information around this is why we do X, Y, Z movement?
Yeah.
Because that's something that I've looked into. I've scoured places to find people who can demonstrate plyometrics, but there's never an explanation of this is the intention, this is why we do this specific movement. And part of me wonders, is it because people get, well, it's just jumping, if that makes sense. And there's you can look at a video on YouTube, and it will tell you exactly what to do in the exercise, and I can just take that and then apply that to my athlete coming in, but I don't actually understand why I'm doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there's potentially a little bit of that, and there's potentially a little bit of just like, it's not very exciting.
Yeah.
But like, if you watch somebody who's really damn good at plyometrics, like, it's actually pretty exciting to watch.
Well, there's
you
the
watch
guy
somebody
you share.
really good at plyometrics, and it's just like, there's this guy on Instagram called Ben the Bounce, and his plyometrics, unreal. This kid is
right.
Like, it's good, and yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people pay it a little bit of lip service. But having said that, going back to what I said about like just doing like trap bar jumps and even just standing vertical jumps on the spot, like talking about bang for buck for people, because what a lot of people do this with everything, don't they? It's just like, right, well, what's the most extreme things I can do?
Yeah.
Or what's the most extreme level of plyometrics I've seen people do, like hurdles and bounds up. Like, there's I can't remember his name, but some like old Soviet Union power shopper, I think he might have been.
He's
like,
bounding
like
over things and ups like stairs, isn't he?
And people are just like, oh yeah, let's do that. It's just like, well, why don't we just start with a vertical jump?
Yeah.
But also, in talking about bang for buck and return for improving your sports performance is, you know, yeah, you might see some of this kind of stuff happen in like smaller strength and conditioning facilities, and you see some of it happen in our gym. But like in reality, if you look at gyms across the world, gyms across the world, in terms of the population of people that attend these gyms, are pretty much dominated by like the big chains, right? You take like David Lloyd, Virgin Actives, those kind of things, like, and look at how many members they have as a worldwide company and compare that to how many members a little strength and conditioning or the accumulative strength and conditioning community has. Like, the number's massive. So if you walk into a David Lloyd, how many people are you seeing doing squats, lunges, bench press, deadlift, loads, right? You walk into a David Lloyd, how many people are you seeing jumping?
Yeah, no one.
Hardly anybody. Yeah. And if they are, they're using a box jump as a conditioning tool, with some burpees and something, right? So in actual fact, like, at the moment, we understand that, you know, you're a member of David Lloyd, you like to play tennis there. I'm going to hire a PT. I want to get a little bit better at tennis. This is what I currently do. I do some leg press, I do some leg extensions, I do some lunges, I do some deadlifts. Great. You do zero jumping.
Yeah.
So why are we going to like bounding down this track when we could just stand here and do like some vertical jumps?
Yeah. So it's really interesting, because then it's something that I started to do with the plyometrics when I first started looking into it, was basically create a list of the exercises with the less skill and the less risk that goes into it. So the more we start to get into bounds and things like that, there is just more coordination needed, and the timing's got to be right to get actually plyometric benefits. And that's the thing that, as I look at exercises, when I'm trying to apply them to clients, part of the things that I've realized is I've got to be able to learn them myself to the point of understanding what's needed. And that's the really helpful thing as that I've done, in the sense of what is the easiest version of this exercise. When you take like a box jump, right? What's easier than a box jump? Like literally a squat jump. And it's like, okay, so let's create this list. So then when you do have someone who literally doesn't do anything, you can start to just tick them through this list when they get the coordination, and you may not even need to go further than that.
But it's exactly the same as when people don't do it. It's exactly the same as what we talk about when we talk about, like, well, you know, you get a client comes in who their aim is to want to get a bit stronger, but at the moment they've never really done any strength training. So it's just like, right, well, we're probably not going to barbell back squat them because they've never done the movement. They've never done any strength training. So yeah, okay, anything they do is going to get them stronger. I get that. But they're not going to get really strong because I can't load that barbell up because they haven't done it. But what I can do is I can put them on a leg press and load it up, and we can just push. But at the same time, I can also teach them to start squatting. But we're probably not going to start with a barbell back squat. We might start with a goblet squat and progress on from there. It's the same with this type of work. Like, why are we going to bounding? Like, let's just go to vertical jumps. But I also think one of the reasons why people don't do it is because in order to get any form of like power kind of like return and benefits for this, I might say to you, like, right, we're going to go every minute on the minute for 5 minutes. You're going to do 3 squat jumps as high as you can every minute on the minute. Right? Probably going to take somebody, I don't know, under 10 seconds to do. For those next 5 minutes, what they're not going to feel, they're likely to not feel a burning sensation in their legs. They're likely to not feel their heart rate go up. They're potentially likely to not really break sweat within those 5 minutes. So if they don't understand the benefits of why they're doing what they're doing, they're just going to be like, well, this is really easy. I could do 20 of these in a minute. Yes.
So that's also why, as a coach, it's really important to understand what you're trying to get out of every exercise you pick, because then you can explain to your client why you're doing something. Most of the people who have questions is purely because they got questions of things they don't understand. So if you're asking me to do 3 squat jumps every minute on the minute that I could do 20 in that time, I'm going to be questioning your ability and what you are giving me, unless you can explain to me exactly why we're doing it.
And I think I've said this a few times, but I think a lot of that comes down to, the more I work with the general public, the more I'm just like, they feed us sensation. It's just like, yeah, but if I did 20, it really hurts.
Yes.
Good, great.
And so I had the conversation with a member the other day about intensity, because they didn't understand why we always tell them to go in a certain way. So when I was explaining how to do kettlebell swings, it was 5 minutes on a machine. It was then 5 rounds of kettlebell swings, goblet squats, jump lunges, and something else. And I was trying to explain to them, go at the same intensity for the whole thing. Try not to go really hard in the first round, then die for a minute, and then go really hard again.
Yeah.
And the question was, you always say it, what does it mean?
Yeah.
And how do I do this? And being able to explain to that client the benefits of trying to keep your heart rate and the kind of level of effort you're putting in the same as you go throughout this, so we're not spiking heart rate and going really quick, then having to stop. The benefit of that compared to doing the other one will be a lot better when it comes to gaining kind of the specific ability for high rocks and things like that. When it comes to just being able to long endurance go through this, it's so much easier for the client to understand and to agree with you, rather than them just going, well, if I go hard, I'm more out of breath.
Yeah.
If I work really hard and then I have like 2 minutes where I'm dying, I feel like I've worked harder.
Yeah.
And it's the intention that we're trying to get from that isn't that.
Yeah.
And that's the ability to be able to explain that. And I think this is the thing for which I've started to realize a lot more. Every time you get those moments where you have to explain something and you don't know the answer, yes, give the best possible answer you can get, but then go and figure out what you didn't know.
Yeah.
And then that's how you gain your knowledge. That's how you improve your ability as a coach.
Yeah. But a kettlebell swing is another really good example, actually, because again, you can, like, a kettlebell swing done well is a great, again, not plyometric, but a good ballistic exercise in terms of like that eccentric and concentric component. And fair, and and really dynamic, utilizing momentum to a certain point of it. But if you go heavy enough, like a really good, fairly powerful, like hip extensor movement. So again, a great power-based exercise. But again, like nowadays, a kettlebell is used as a conditioning tool within circuits. And, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because we use a lot of that in a lot of our sweat classes and conditioning components. But like you were just saying, it's knowing how and when and why you're applying something. There's a difference between like, right, within this 20-minute AMRAP, there's 15 kettlebell swings with all these other exercises. But in this other session that we've done, we're going every minute on the minute. For 5 minutes, you can do 15 seconds of kettlebell swings.
Yep.
But what a lot of people will also do is, if I gave them those 2 workouts, they'd just choose the same kettlebell.
Yes.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, well, I use this yellow one in the sweat classes, so like I'll use that for this.
Well, that was the conversation, because she turned around and was like, well, what should I go heavier or should I go lighter? Because I can go lighter and not break, or I can go heavier and have to break. And for me, it was, your effort level has to be consistent throughout. That's the crux of it. So whichever kettlebell you pick, you don't want to be going up higher, so you have to reduce the reps, because then we're not getting the intention out of the exercise. Yeah. And that's, I think that's the interesting part about programming, is you can pick the same exercise and it have completely different intentions.
Yeah, because it's just like, what's the stimulus?
Yeah.
What are you looking for? But again, it's the same thing. Like, you can have, it's going back to that scenario of like, if we've got somebody who wants to get strong, we know barbell back squat, we know barbells are great for getting people strong. But like, at the moment, this person's not really trained much. We're not going to use a barbell. We're going to use a leg press. Like, it's the stimulus that we're looking for. And
that's the thing against the battle against the random trainers who pick just random exercises and are feeding into and off of the sensation.
100%, mate. Like, and it's exactly that. Like, I put money on you go into some big chain gyms and just stopped any personal trainer and just ask them what the intention and the stimulus is that they're looking to try and achieve from the exercise that their client is doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, there'd be hopefully a good handful who would be able to give you that, but I think the majority of people wouldn't.
I agree. And I think that separates people as in general, in the sense of not just ability, but the ability to look at yourself and to see where you don't have knowledge. If you can do that, look for those areas, that is where you progress.
Yeah.
If you look for the place when you if you go through your mind now, if you're a personal trainer, or and you're looking at the programs you've written and you don't know why you've picked an exercise, find it out. Figure that out, why you've chosen that exercise, because it is all about the reason behind it. And whether you've picked that exercise purely because, well, it's the most regressed version of an exercise it could possibly be because this person's never trained, that's great. Or I always pick a single arm dumbbell row near the very start of a client's program. Part of the reason is, yes, I could use it for target in the back, but I'm not really using it for that. I'm kind of using it for a little bit of anti-rotation and for their core. And that's the goal that I like to use, to get them to be able to stable on one side of their body and just coordinate move in another side. That to me gives me the ability to then take them onto like a half kneel in single arm cable row without their body flying all over the place. But I'm not some of those exercises there, I'm not targeting the lats specifically. I'm targeting this intention of the movement. Yeah. But then at the same time, I could then put that in his program 6 months later, and I'm trying to target your back now.
Like load it up.
Be
like, right, we're here, lats.
And that's the fun bit about it, is like when I don't understand, that's where I need to try and look. Yeah. It's just.
But that also makes I think that makes coaching more exciting, because I dread to think how many trainers there are who are just like, they'll coach people. And it's like they're going through the motions themselves, just like, oh, we're going to do this exercise now. Now we'll do this one. Now we'll do this one. Rather than it being like, well, we're doing this because of this.
Yeah.
We're then going to do this because of this. And then we're going to do this because of that. Like, and the whole, and the chances are, like, if you're a good personal trainer and you're educating your clients, some of your clients will know more than some personal trainers.
But that should be the goal, and I think that's the thing that I've got lost in before as well, and I think you can get lost in it when you've got a lot of plates you're spinning. But it's remembering that even when you feel like you're talking too much at your client and you're over explaining things, that you're going to give them the things that are in their level. But one of the best ways to learn is to teach. So if you can really teach the exercises you're doing, you're going to learn more and they're going to learn way more. And it's like you're both going to progress throughout that, and that's the goal.
Yeah. And again, like, you just made a good point of kind of like giving them the information of where they're at. And yeah, there are times where, like, some people will come in mid-40s, literally never trained before in their life. It's just like, well, you don't need to overthink this stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Like, they've never done anything. So anything is going to get them better.
And it gets to the point of just asking them questions of, if you're trying to improve someone's knowledge, you see where they're at and you see to where they want to go. If you as the personal trainer or the one kind of in the future for them, that's the knowledge you have is what they want. You want to maybe start them with, every time you go and do a session, I do it with a client now, I say, right, if you were going to go into a gym today and you were going to try and train your chest, how would you do it?
Yeah.
What exercise would you pick? What's the sets? What's the rep ranges? Because he's learning, and that is a lot to go in for someone.
And on a similar sort of lines, like if I had somebody, going back to that person that I just like mentioned, if I had somebody who was mid-40s and literally never trained before in their life, like literally never, or maybe like been to a gym a handful of times, but like in 40 years, going to the gym 10 times is not really ever going to do anything. And they were just like, right, I want to start training. Well, the first question I'll probably ask you just like, right, what do you like doing?
Yeah, straight.
Because at the moment you don't train. So the first thing I need to do is like make you adherent to training.
Yep.
The best way I'm going to make you adherent to training is by you doing something you enjoy doing. Because currently whatever you do is going to be a benefit and an improvement on what you currently do, because that's currently nothing. And
that kind of, this can come full circle back to when you're prescribing speed work for power movements. It will come down to the engagement you're going to get out of the client, because we said earlier, it's not that interesting for most people. Yeah. So what is the benefit you're going to get from it if they're going to do it wrong?
Yeah.
And that's the question you got to ask yourself as you're coaching someone, is what's going to give this person more benefit? Yes, I could train them on this whole like strength and speed spectrum here, but what are they going to be engaged in is what they're going to enjoy. So if you can, yes, I may not touch this middle end where we're kind of at 40-50%, but I know they'll do a box jump, and I know that I could make them do like 70% trying to move really quick. Great.
Yep.
And you kind of covered it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was good. Enjoyed that one.
That's good. Yeah.
thank you so much for watching. This is Real Coaching Radio. Hopefully towards March will be 2 a week. We've gone from once a month or once a year.
Well, I was going to say, once a year is probably a bit more like
with the hopes that we could do once a week. But now this seems to have found a way to be able to produce podcasts and get a lot more different opinions. I think the one we're going to do tomorrow
that'd be good.
will be quite nice because we're going to try and get all 4 of us on it. So thank you for watching, guys. We will see you on the next one. I mean, hopefully the outro to this isn't as long-winded as the intro was, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that one. I think when it comes to intent of exercises, I think a lot of trainers don't know why they pick exercises. Me, myself, have gone through periods of times where I've seen something on Instagram, seen one of the other coaches in the gym performing something, and I've just popped that in someone's program without knowing the reason behind it. And I think that's a lot of what we're trying to get onto, is being honest with yourself as a coach, but also as a client, being able to ask the right questions so you can check whether your coach has the knowledge that they are telling you that they have. If you want to follow any of us, you can find Mark at Mark Origin Series, me at Body Hack the Mind. You can find Chris at the _symbiotic _chimp, and Jasper at Jasper School. Chris's Instagram's going to have to change, man. I can't keep saying underscore. Follow the gym on Origin Athletic. Thank you so much for watching, gang. This is Real Coaching Radio, and we will see you on the next one.